Bless Yahweh, the Blessed One.
Blessed is Yahweh, the Blessed One, for all eternity.
Torah of Yahweh is perfect, bringing back the being. The witness of Yahweh is trustworthy, making wise the simple. Open my eyes that I might see wonders from the Torah.
Amen.
Deuteronomy 6. And this is the command, the laws and right rulings which Yahweh, your Elohim, has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you fear Yahweh your Elohim, to guard all his laws and his commands which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, and shall guard to do, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly, as Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, has spoken to you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, Israel, Yahweh Elohim is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And it shall be, when Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob, to give you great and good cities which you did not build, and houses filled with all kinds of goods which you did not fill, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. And you shall eat and be satisfied. Be on guard, lest you forget Yahweh, who brought you out of the land of Israel, from the house of bondage. Fear Yahweh your Elohim, and serve him, and swear by his name. Do not go after other mighty ones, the mighty ones of the people who are all around you. For Yahweh your Elohim is a jealous owl in your midst. Lest the displeasure of Yahweh your Elohim burn against you, then he shall destroy you from the face of the earth. Do not try Yahweh your Elohim, as you tried him in Massah. Diligently guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, and his witnesses, and his laws, which he has commanded you. And you shall do what is right and good in the eyes of Yahweh, that it might be well with you. And you shall go in and possess the good land of which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to drive out all your enemies from before you, as Yahweh has spoken. When your son asks you in time to come, saying, what is the meaning of the witnesses and the laws and the right rulings which Yahweh our Elohim has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Mitzrayim, and Yahweh brought us out of Mitzrayim with a strong hand. And Yahweh sent signs and wonders, great and grievous, upon Mitzrayim, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household, before our eyes. And he brought us out from there, to bring us in, to give us the land of which he swore to our fathers. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahweh our Elohim, for our good always, to keep us alive, as it is today. And it is righteousness for when we guard to do all this command before Yahweh our Elohim, as he has commanded us. Give thanks to Yahweh according to his righteousness. Praise the name of Yahweh Most High. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path.
Your righteousness is righteousness forever, and your Torah is truth.
Make me understand that I might observe you and guard with all my heart.
Amen.
So we're going to be looking at the Shema in the context of a few passages, and I think that hopefully it's a reminder for everybody just on I think the importance of the Almighty's word and the importance of the Shema, and just the context that we see things unfold. So if you look at it when we're reading in Deuteronomy 6, it says all the days of your life, that it might be well with you. If we turn there, can someone just read that for one part of the verse? As long as you live, your descendants are to honor Yahweh, who may live in the land a long time. My translation is great.
It is so that you fear Yahweh Elohim, to guard all his laws and his commands, which I command you, and your sons and your grandsons, all the days of your life, and the days and that your days be prolonged. Is that the right one?
Okay, so that's fine. So if you think about it, it's something that is meant to be a lifelong journey or a lifelong commitment that one is doing. This very important thing, and I just wanted to, highlight that it's. If you think about it, what does the Shema mean? What does Shema mean? To hear, right? So, and it's about hear Israel, Yahweh is our mighty one, Yahweh is one, and then you're gonna love Him, and all the components. And it's talking about that this is a good thing. It's a good thing for you to
Keep the rules.
keep the laws. It's a good thing for you to think about Shema. It's a good thing for you to hear all the days of your life. It's a good thing for you to keep on being reminded that who Yahweh is and that you are to love Him. Right? What is our tendency is that it's easy for us to fall into the society. I love the woman today, tomorrow I don't love her. So today I love Yahweh, tomorrow I don't. Kind of a syndrome. So it's this constant reminder to live a certain way, to hear the proclamation of faith in our lives. So if you turn to Romans 10, as you say, but how can they call to Him for help if they have not believed? And how can they believe if they have not heard the message? And how can they hear the message if it is not proclaimed? Okay? And how can the message be proclaimed if the messages are not sent? As the scripture says, how wonderful is the coming of the messengers who bring good news. But not all have accepted the good news. Isaiah himself says, Master, who believed our message? So then, faith comes from hearing the message or the word, and the message comes from proclaiming Messiah. So I just wanted to, this aspect of faith comes by hearing, right? So it's in certain faith movements very much a buzz phrase that gets used. Faith comes by hearing. And what is it that we need to hear? What is it that we should be hearing proclaimed? Okay, Torah. The good news. Okay, what else? Okay, so if we turn to just in verse 8 there, in Romans 10 verse 8, while we're there, is that it says there, so verse 5, Moses wrote this about being put right with the Almighty by obeying the Torah. Whoever obeys the commands of the Torah will live. But what the scripture says about being put right with Elohim through faith is this: you're not to ask yourself who will go up to heaven, that is to bring Messiah down, nor are you to ask who will go down into the world below, that is to bring Messiah up from the dead. What it says is this: the Almighty's message is near you, on your lips and in your heart. That is the message of faith that we preach. If you confess that Yeshua is the Master, you will be, and believe that Elohim raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by faith that we are put right with Elohim. It is by confession that we are saved. The scripture says, whoever believes in him will not be disappointed. This includes everyone, because there's no difference between Jew and Gentile. So what's interesting is this aspect of, it's quoting from Deuteronomy, this faith that we're meant to live by. It's just a reminder. I just wanted to quickly touch on that. But so Camilla, you said the Torah is something to be read. What else? Surely it's right from the Torah right through to the end of the writings. It's all good for us to be reading and proclaiming. Okay, so just sometimes we neglect to, we miss the points, so let's put it like that, if we haven't gone through a whole survey of passages. So I just wanted to highlight we'll start with a few passages in the New Testament, and you'll go to Luke 4. So Luke 4 verse 16.
And he came to Nazareth where he had been brought up. According to his practice, he went to the congregation on the Sabbath and stood up and read. Okay.
Yeah, it's just one more verse.
And the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. And having unrolled the scroll, found the place where it was written. The Spirit of Yahweh was upon me, because his anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to heal the broken heart, to prepare, release the captives, and recover the sight of the blind, to send away crushed ones with release, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh.
Okay, that's fine. So it's, as was his custom, he went up to read in the community and in the synagogue. He went up and the word was proclaimed. Right. If you turn to Acts 13. So Acts 13 is actually quite an amazing passage, or a verse. Chapter, say. So in Acts 13, verse 27, you can read from verse 26 in fact.
Just 26 and 27.
Yeah, just 26 to 27.
Men, brothers, sons of the race of Abraham, and those among you fearing Elohim, to you the word of this deliverance has been sent. Those dwelling in Jerusalem and the rulers, because they did not know him, nor even the voices of the prophets which are read every Sabbath, have fooled them in having judged him.
Okay, so this aspect of the prophets being read every Shabbat, every Sabbath. Okay, found that very interesting. Also, verse 26, my translation says, "My fellow Israelites, descendants of Abraham, and all Gentiles here who worship Almighty." So, just very interesting is that this is being proclaimed and it's being talked about. That the prophets are being read every Sabbath, and everybody is aware of it, whoever is there. Okay, if you go to in chapter 13, and you go to verse 42 and verse 44, Acts 13, verse 42 and 42 to 44.
When they went up to the congregation, the Gentiles begged to have these words spoken to the next Sabbath. And when they heard of the congregation broke up, many of the heard and of the worshipping converts followed sharp and Barnabas, who speaking to them, urging them to continue in faith of Elohim. And the next Sabbath, almost all the city came together to hear the word of Elohim.
So I find it just this passage just to highlight that the following, like they have this proclamation on the Sabbath. Everyone hears about it. Everyone was there. Those that had come from a non-Jewish background were like, okay, we want to hear more, and then they hear more the following Shabbat, right? So I just find this Shabbat, and then the following Shabbat, you come to hear the word. You come to hear what's being proclaimed. Okay. Colossians 4 verse 16.
And when it says read among you, see that it is read also in the assembly of the Laodiceans, and that you believe, and that you likewise read the letter from Laodicea.
Okay, so just this aspect of this letter's been written, saying, take this letter, make sure you read the letter, and go then to the next congregation, make sure that they read this letter. You can also look at, you won't turn there, but 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 27. It's the same thing, make sure kind of this letter or this epistle, this thing that I've written is actually read. I just wanted to highlight within the New Testament this aspect of public reading, public hearing of the letters of the Torah, of the prophets, all of these things that should be heard in a congregation, right? And we're thinking about linking this to the Shema, right? So if you turn to Ezra, before we turn to Ezra, I'm just going to read you Acts 15, this one part in Acts 7 verse 10.
Yeah. 10 to what?
Okay, just 10. Okay, so let me just get you Acts 15. Okay, so in Acts 15 verse 21, for the law of Moses has been read for a very long time in the synagogues every Sabbath, and his words are preached in every town. So we saw that. We saw they went from different cities, and the Torah was being read, but just this, for Moses, some translations, King James says, for Moses of ancient generations. So for Moses from ancient time, he's being read. Okay? Ezra 7 verse 10.
For Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the Torah of Yahweh and to do it, and to teach laws and right rulings in Israel.
Okay, so Ezra is the book when they're coming back from the Babylonian exile, and they now want to reinstitute the temple services, etc. And what do? He reintroduces the commitment to serve and to follow Yahweh and the Torah and the reading, public reading, and the Sabbath. Right? And you can also, I don't know exact verse, but in Nehemiah 10, it's a similar passage, this oath to follow the Torah. And they reinstitute the public reading. Okay, so before we get back to Deuteronomy 6, let's just look at a few passages in Deuteronomy. So if we get to Deuteronomy 10, someone want to turn to Deuteronomy 10 verse 16? Camilla, do you want to turn to Deuteronomy 17 verse 19? Gareth, do you want to turn to Deuteronomy 4 verse 10? And Shimone, you can turn to Deuteronomy 31 verse 12. Yes. Okay, so Deuteronomy 10 verse 16.
You shall circumcise the foreskin of your heart and harden your neck no more.
Okay, so there's does it, in the context of circumcising your heart, what is it about to serve Yahweh, isn't it?
Yeah.
What does it say to serve Him?
For Yahweh your Elohim is Elohim of mighty ones, the master of masters, the great, almighty, awesome, who shows no partiality or takes a bribe.
Okay, we'll
read before that.
What is before that?
I think in verse 12, and now Israel, what is Yahweh asking? What is Yahweh Elohim asking?
Yeah.
You're going to fear Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve him, to serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, to guard the commands of Yahweh and his laws, which I command you today for your good.
Okay, so there's thing of to go and to fear Him, okay, to serve Him, and then have to circumcise your heart. Deuteronomy 17 verse 19.
And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, so that he learns to fear Yahweh his Elohim, and guard all the words of his Torah and his laws to do them.
Okay, so Deuteronomy 17 is about the king. The king is meant to read the Torah and publicly know what it says, so that you may fear Yahweh. So this, you read it, you fear Him. the linking of the concepts. Okay, Deuteronomy 4 verse 10. Let's put that.
The day when you stood before Yahweh, your enemy in Horeb, Yahweh said to me, assemble the people to me, and I make them hear my words, so that they learn to fear me all the days they live on the earth, and teach them to their children.
Okay, so they stood to hear the words, they hear the words, they fear Yahweh, they teach it to their children. Okay, very simple process, concept. Shimone.
Assemble the people, the men and the women and the little ones, and your sojourn who is within your gates, so that they hear and so that they learn to fear Yahweh and God to do all the words of His Torah.
Okay, so again, it's the coming together, it's the assembling of people to hear. Who's to hear? Everybody. From all the different generations, men, women, young, old, everyone. Right? And that was Deuteronomy 31 verse 12, eh? So just if we turn to Deuteronomy 30, and someone must then also turn to Deuteronomy 6 where we were. Okay, so in Deuteronomy 30 verse 6, does someone want to read Deuteronomy 30 verse 6?
Yahweh, your enemy, will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed. Love Yahweh, your enemy, for your heart and for your being, so that you might live.
Let's just see there.
It is not 10.
Okay, so if you also go to verse 10, yeah.
You obey the voice of Yahweh, and God has commanded His laws which are written in the book, Torah. Turn back to Yahweh, your Elohim, all your heart with all your being.
Okay, so if you think of Deuteronomy 30, does it sound familiar? The phrasing
Sounds like Deuteronomy 6.
sounds like Deuteronomy 6. You want to just do it, just flip between the two. So you keep Deuteronomy 30 open and turn to Deuteronomy 6 that we were reading. So it says here, in Deuteronomy 4, it says, love Yahweh Elohim with all your heart. Deuteronomy 30 says, so that you will love Him with all your heart. Will continue to live in the land. So there's you look at these repetitions in the passages, and it's very much about learning to love Him, learning to fear Him. Why would we want to read His Word? Because we want to love Him, we want to hear how to fear Him. Right? And we can see, as we were reading in Acts chapter 15, it says, for Moses of ancient generations has been read in the congregations. So when Ezra and Nehemiah, they come back to the Torah and they read the Torah, and then they see that, hang on, everybody had public proclamations and heard the Torah being read. We're repenting, we want to serve Yahweh, and they reinstitute all of those things. So I find that very, very interesting in the context of the Shema as such an important part of that proclamation that these people would have read. So each time this is now being read in the congregation, keep on coming back to the Shema. Any thoughts on that?
It always seems to be hearing, obeying, hearing, hand in hand, and then teaching.
Yeah.
To a short degree. So that always seems to be the common words and phrases that come up in all the passages. One seems that they would hear it, they would obey it, they would fear Yahweh, and then they would teach it.
I've got just one thought, man. It's a question.
Yeah.
It always seems to go back to circumcise your heart.
Yes.
Would that also, like, what I'm thinking is, don't put yourself higher now. Put yourself aside and then just listen and hear.
Very, very much so. It's very much you are deciding to, as you say, remove the foreskin of your flesh to now come to hear Yahweh's word. So it's very much like you were saying.
I find it interesting, like, some in a business context, a lot of people will say the best form of advertising is word of mouth. It's like one person, proclaiming, I don't know, some other product or whatever, and another person hears it, and then, this just perpetuates. So it should not kind of be the same, this perpetual hearing, telling our children, telling family, friends around us that they can just hear the word of Almighty.
So isn't that a very interesting perspective of, as you're saying, just come and hear His word, see His word for yourself, see the goodness in His word. It's like a very wholesome, just come. Whatever state you're in, whatever sin you've got, whatever brokenness, whatever position you are in your life, His word is pure. His word is clean. You will just hear it and it washes over you. So it talks about in, where is it? I think it's James 3 verse, James 3. Talks about the washing of His word. I can look for it quickly if you want. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is the public reading of the Bible for any congregation is actually fundamentally important. And the more we move away from public reading, the more we stop following the biblical model. And the more other things we start to very easily follow. So it's very, very key for a congregation to be reading as much of the book as we can each week, so we learn. We don't get, as you say, you don't get everything right at the beginning. You learn to start fearing. You learn, okay, I fear who Yahweh is. I'm going to start that path of walking, coming closer to Him. As Susanna was singing the amazing song, get your roots down and the fruits come. The more we dig into His word, the more the fruits come in our lives. And I think that's important because we've got weeds, and those weeds are giving off the wrong things. They're growing the wrong way. We need to get rid of the weeds. We need to then start listening to the Shema, start planting His word in, and engraft that into us, and then the right things start coming.
It's like any culture really is formed on tradition. So it's a way you form healthy tradition. In other words, most of the traditions that we're confronted with, but have become normal in society are unhealthy traditions. So then traditions form culture. So if you can re-establish healthy traditions, this is what we're trying to achieve. Yeah. And as you get to my age, you actually start seeing it, because you guys are still busy with children and all these sorts of things. And as you get, I'm 60 now, so I can look back and see that if things had been different in my life, how different it would have been. You know what I mean? So now, the hindsight is 100% vision, 20/20 vision. So that's why it's so important to establish it in the youth.
Well, I think that all of us have walked a path where we get to a place where you realize that there's a lot that we need to work through and fix, and you just don't have enough time and enough energy in this current place in your life to do all of that. So what is the next thing? As you were reading, we were reading that you learn who Yahweh is, you learn to fear Him, then you learn to teach it to your children. And it's that aspect when you realize, okay, He's been very merciful to me, I didn't know all of these things in His Word, He's shown it to me, I now can teach this to my children so that they can be raised in a more righteous manner and get more right than I did.
heard the same thing that day. So there was very little room for someone going off and saying that they heard something different, which is, I find very interesting as in the congregation. I think it's so important that you've got to meet and study with fellow believers, because it can minimize heresies or schisms, or people hearing the wrong thing. That's what I find. How many million people all hearing the same voice, all hearing the same instructions, do the same thing? There's very little room to go and do, and then do what is right in your own heart and mind. So that's a really good reason why we need to publicly read it out, so that you're not going off and doing cyber teaching or by yourself, and you close yourself off. It's good to hear it publicly.
It's interesting how it failed, because what you're talking about actually failed, isn't it? I mean, they did disobey. They did disobey, and everything fell apart.
Yeah.
So we've got the record as well, what happens when you do this. Which is really interesting.
So I think it's just, just in terms of important that if we're going to try and promote a congregation that lives according to the fruits of the word, the fruits of the Spirit, the fruits of Torah, that we plant the congregation properly. We plant whatever we're doing, in a wholesome manner. I mean, you can see numerous congregations in whatever different denomination or affiliation, and promoting things on TV that are anti-scriptural, and promoting those to people who don't know any better. And we don't want to plant a congregation like that. We want to plant a proper congregation that serves Yahweh, that comes closer to who He is. So it is important that we know what are the things that we need to get right in that. And also to encourage people, when we see that they are in a congregation that doesn't do public reading, we need to try and encourage them and try and challenge the perspective to say that public reading is not important. It is vitally important to a congregation.
Can I just say something? I've been thinking about this, that you also have the other end of the scale. Like if you need to cater for people who, like the thief on the cross is a perfect example. Okay, he doesn't have too much time available to him.
Yeah.
So somehow one has to build in to the whole scenario, which you starting off. Public reading is great, but there are people who are busy dying, and they're kind of at that stage where all they need is to call on the name. Actually, they just need that, which is amazing, because you've got Christianity proclaiming, "Call on the name and you will be saved." And so you've got the two. Christianity is like struggling with a lot of issues, let's face it, but they've got one thing right, and that is that call on that name as you're dying. If you just do it then, I mean, so there's a thief it worked for the thief on the cross, right? So you've got it's amazing how the two, when combined, because we don't really focus much on that in Torah. You don't focus too much on what to do when you die. You know what I mean? Or do you? I mean, I don't think so. We focus more on life. Isn't that so?
Yeah, well, certainly the whole thing is that we're meant to live our lives in a righteous manner, that we would be worthy to be counted amongst the righteous.
But many people only hear about when they die, just before they die. I just think it's amazing that we've got access to both of those things, having come out of Christianity. I remember those things very distinctly.
Yeah.
And I find it very valuable at times when people are dying. You actually can just say, look, it's okay. You may have screwed up, but the thief on the cross also screwed up.
Okay.
I just want to say that I don't think there's a guarantee. It's not my place to judge, but if you spend your life rejecting the Almighty numerous times, and then just at the barrel of the gun is dealing with it,
it's not something
you decide it's the end of my life and I've got a few seconds left, now I'm going to call on the name of the Almighty.
I'm not saying it that way. I'm saying that somebody may not know.
I agree. I think the thief on the cross, whatever his life was, he was in a place where he saw what Yeshua did and it was fantastic. So it's not. You reject Almighty your whole life, and for the last 10 seconds.
Well, if you reject Almighty your whole life, you're probably going to reject Him in your last 10 seconds, because that's when the devil takes over anyway. So you're not hardly like to it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that right now as my own man's busy in that situation. And it's very interesting. situation to be in. And you know, it's such a for me, the scripture is so intriguing that way that it caters for both. You know, I finish talking.
So, just a couple of other things. If we turn to back to Romans. In Romans 7 and 8, just a few things. We won't go through all of the chapter, but just to highlight a few things in the chapter. Verse 4, wherefore my brothers, you also are dead to the law by the body of Messiah, that you should be married to another, to him who is raised from the dead, that we should bring forth fruit unto Elohim. So the whole thing is that we meant, as we were reading, we meant to now get yoked to who the Almighty is, put down those roots, and out come the fruit, as Susanna's song was going. So we're meant to now produce fruit in our lives that shows that we are children of the Almighty.
What chapter are you in?
Romans 7. Okay, so it says, for when we were in the flesh, the motions of sin, which were by the Torah, did work in our members to bring forth fruit unto death. Okay, so we were in our flesh, and they bring forth things unto death, things that sin, things that are wrong. Let me just go there. But now we are delivered from the Torah, that being dead wherein we were held, we should serve in newness of spirit and not in the oldest of the letter. So the whole thing is that if we just going through the motions, what the Torah does is it highlights sin. It brings out all the sin that we are doing, right? You go, oh, geez, okay, got some stuff wrong, you know. So that's one of the purposes of the Torah is to bring out your sin, is to highlight that we've got sin, and it's not so that it's not that the Torah is sin. The Torah is holy. That's what it says there. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid, or the Almighty forbid. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the Torah. For I had not known lust except the Torah that said, you shall not covet. Okay? Then sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscence. For without the law, sin was dead. For I was alive without the law once, but when the command came, sin revived, and I died. And the commandment, which was ordained to life, it's meant to give us life. The command is holy, it's good. I found to be unto death. Okay, so what happens is, for sin, taking occasion by the command, deceives me. So my sin actually gets the better of me, and I think I can actually live according to the sin. It deceives me in my sinfulness. It deceived me, and by it slew me. Therefore the law is holy, the commandment is holy, and just and good. So what's important about that is this aspect of why public reading is very important as a congregation, is also is that we are all coming with our own sin, with our own gun. That at least in a public setting, His word is now being proclaimed to people. They need to consider and meditate in their lives. What are the things that they need to work on? What do they need to fix? So it's important that we use His word to highlight as a congregation, where do we need to grow? Where do we need to fix our relationship with the Most High? So it's just, for me, a very important process as a congregation that we have to continually have public reading. I've got a few nodding heads this side. Right? So again, I like what Clyde said about, our job is to go and say to people, just come and hear His word, come and see the goodness in His word, and and make sure that we don't cloud the goodness in His Word with our own sin, with our own weeds, with our own thing, because then they're not going to see the goodness, they're just going to see the weeds. So it's very important to understand our job. I mean, the more we force people, you must do this or you must do that, people get the backs up and they don't want to come, etc., etc. Our job is for people, for sinners to come close, if I can put it like that. The world that's around us that is not observing His ways, to come and hear His ways, for their sins to be forgiven, and then they become grateful for that and they want to then obey. I think sometimes it's too easy to get in the obey mode. You're still trying to get people to obey whose hearts aren't like circumcised. People's hearts need to, as we were reading, circumcised, get their hearts circumcised to want to come and hear His word.
Yeah, and I mean, just the more one looks at it, the Torah is for the living. And I mean, as I said, just sort of a bigger question. You know, if you, for whatever reason, have chosen not to follow Torah all your life, do you really want to be doing that at eternity? If you've already made a decision you don't like it. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know how the Almighty judges all of this, but yeah, for me, we really need to be focusing on we're all sitting here, we're alive today, and the passion of living today and applying the Torah in our lives today. The Torah is not for the dead, it's for the living. Now, today, what would you?
Must make you live long. That's what it says, that you might have a long life.
And it's not the future. It's not. I think it's very practical, down to earth today, how we are living.
I think about the parable about the seed planted in different types of ground. That if anyone comes and hears, you are circumcised by heart, you are fruitful. But I don't think that if your soil is not fruitful yet, that no one should sow there, because they must then start working and building relationships.
It's a very good parable in Matthew 13. Okay, any other thoughts?
I was just going to ask a question which was to do with the synagogue, because in every synagogue the Torah is read every week, every Shabbat.
Yes.
And yet, it's not having the effect that it should, is it?
I think that we'll let the Almighty be the judge on that one. Grant, you got some thoughts there?
No, just thinking, along with hearing, you can read have a public reading, but alone sometimes it's not enough maybe to just have that, because people hear its words but they see different things in those words, and it's very important to actually have a leader and a shepherd to show you how to see those words in the proper way, without your own mind clouding, filtering the words to saying something else.
And that's exactly what happened in synagogue.
Okay, but the thing is that even if you start out and you come with those wrong ideas, if you continue to be faithful, at some point you're going to get corrected. Everyone's got things that need to be corrected. So the more one, and that's what I'm saying, the more one goes through a landscape and rereading and you become more mature, you take on more of a yoke in a congregation to help other people or be used in certain ways. So I think that there's mercy to someone who, as you're saying, starting out, he might get some wrong ideas, but he might also start correcting those wrong ideas, or he might start, working on other aspects in his life. Charles?
I think our view is absolutely, completely watered down to a ridiculous perspective, because the Shema is not talking about reading the Bible once a week or publicly. It's talking about reading it when you go to bed, when you get out of bed, when you're walking on the road, you know. So it's talking about an obsession with reading the Bible. People would say you're obsessed with reading the Bible. That's actually what should be happening. People would say, I can never talk to you, just always reading the Bible. I mean, when are you reading the Bible? What's going on? That's kind of what the Shema is talking about. That is actually what the Shema is saying. So the Bible should be read to that extent. The minimum commandment regarding Shabbat is that we should have a public reading of the Bible aloud together. That's a direct command for Shabbat. So, you know, the once a week Shabbat thing is that the group of us must read it just to keep Shabbat. You know, but the Shema is saying in your own daily life you must be reading it all the time, every minute. And you know, the thing is that when we look at the language there when Shema is used in more than one place, we see that it's not just the listening, and that it's just this like active, it's sinking in, it's affecting you, and it's reflected in when Yeshua talks in Matthew 7 about those who say, Master, Master. The Father says, I don't know who you are. And in Luke 6, where he says, you call me Master, but why don't you do what I say? You know, so the reality, the thing is, it should be like, just like what Peter's saying, we should be hammered with the word all the time. It should almost be like, it sounds funny, but it should almost be like propaganda, you know, the whole time, so that it's in the system the whole time.
Well, it should be like a addiction as well.
Yes.
You need.
Because the reality is, we've got propaganda right now on the radio and on TV and things all the time, promoting one style, and we need to counter that with the Bible all the time to filter those things out. So it's it should be a massive part of our lives, you know, and if it's not a massive part of our lives, it's a problem. The other thing is, even if the Torah is read, if we are spending an hour on the Torah and we're spending 5 hours on other stuff, on what someone else has written on the internet, maybe some false prophets stuff on the internet, or maybe someone else's stuff on this, or maybe we're only reading what other people think all the time, like the Talmud. You know, then you're only spending a small amount of your time, although you think you're studying, actually reading Almighty's Word. And that can also be very dangerous. So we want to stick to what is pure, and we almost want to be obsessive about it. And we need to do it together on Shabbat.
You see, like as you were saying there, I mean, like Ezra and Nehemiah, it doesn't say that they brought out, you know, the volumes of the Talmud to tell the people all of that. It says that they reinstituted like the reading of the Torah and hearing what we should be doing, guys.
Yes.
As an important thing, and they were very serious in their oath and their commitment to getting that right.
And you can see that the father's supposed to teach children, we're supposed to educate our kids, we're supposed to tell them how to live. We shouldn't send them to school and tell them how to live. I'm not saying school's wrong, I'm just saying we can't expect the public school system to teach our kids values and morals, to love Almighty. It will never happen. So if we send them to school or not, it's still our responsibility to make sure that our kids are being raised and taught properly. Then we have to make sure we get the time there. And the other thing is, what did you say now? You said
The reinstituted the reading, Ezra and Nehemiah.
The other thing is that when you knew, you know, you've got a lot to learn very quickly. Kind of what Peter was saying earlier, and I think to what Ron said, that's where you need people that say, look, I've done this for a while, you know, and we're here. And Shabbat is part of that system of identifying places to go where you can find people to talk about difficult concepts, and where you don't have new converts, etc., that are, you know, telling people what to do, you know, because that's not biblical either. So, you know, that's part of this whole system. It's reading all the time, reading on Shabbat, knowing where you can go, identifying people that can guide and teach and help. You know, it's biblical. So, anyway,
Well, I'm pretty grateful that you said, because I can't do that. Having narcolepsy it excludes all that stuff. So I'm grateful that, you know, there are fellowships around where one can go and just, you can kind of get in, you feel like you're in the right place. You know what I mean? And it makes a difference, I tell you.
Yeah. So the other thing is also when the more like cycles, you know, I think when one if we start out in our lives and we start with congregations that aren't reading it and that we've raised in those, then we go and start trying to implement some of the Torah cycles. We've got like this counterbalance, because we're coming from like an unbalanced congregation to one that's now doing some sort of a balance, and then it's very easy to swing over the whole way. And the whole thing is that the more you go through cycles, the more you implement the cycles that it talks about, the more you become balanced as you learn to appreciate all the different passages in the text, and you actually now have a more stable congregation or community that can actually be used by the Almighty, and not a congregation that's like, is it the lunar Sabbath this week? Is it now the conjunction of the new moon next week? Is it is it Yahuwah? Is it this or whatever? And you have all of these, this spectrum of religion that takes place, of very, very unstable congregations sort of forming. I wouldn't want to introduce a new person into that congregation for that particular reason, is that as we were reading, it says that in the Shema, we go back to the Shema in Deuteronomy 6. It says, I think your translation said something, as long as you live, or as your whole life, or whatever it was. I can't remember which verse. My translation's not great.
That your days may be prolonged.
Yeah, but it's not that your days may be prolonged, but for all the days of your life, right? So hearing the words of the Torah and hearing the words of life are meant to be for all the days of your life. So it doesn't help to get a person into an extremely unstable congregation. They learn like a whole lot of cool things for a couple of weeks, and then they go into this unstable cycle and mode, and then the seed falls to the ground, as you highlighted in Matthew 13. We don't, congregations that are unstable haven't gone through enough cycles to develop a stable congregation to teach people and help them.
But isn't that part of the process as well? There will be unstable congregations until they learn to be stable.
Yes. So all I'm just saying is you can identify a congregation that is in different stages of maturity or different cycles that they are working through. And it doesn't mean that the congregation is bad or evil. It just means they're at a certain place, and they can't be trusted with more of the understanding of the gospel or the Torah until they've worked through their instabilities.
Shouldn't one be then an agent in that? Shouldn't you?
Sorry?
Shouldn't one who understands these things be an agent with assisting them?
So you've got to. You must always understand that. If you see that there's an unstable congregation or whatever, is it your place to come and show them everything? Is it at the right time you maybe will sow a good seed? Because even if you just sow a good seed and it's in the wrong time, it's going to be for nothing. Or are you going to get caught up in their weeds? There's a whole lot of things that you need to weigh up before you go and start trying to, help another congregation fix some of its difficulties, if I can put it like that. So I think even with what we do at Beit Mashiach, it's very challenging. It's to for all of us to come together to make sure that we are getting to a place of maturity, of healthy growth. That is just keeping our hands full. There's sometimes a lot of work.
Well, feel free to follow me for any weeds, because I'm a bit of a weeder.
Yeah. So and that's why sometimes it may be better to leave that congregation in that state, knowing that at some point they're going to hopefully stabilize, and then you can engage them again.
Yeah, it's built into the process. They have to stabilize it to stay with Torah because it ultimately demands them.
Any other thoughts? We was close a little bit early, or
We were, thinking, reading about that, how about the man who built his house on the rock, we were reading it, I think that the house on the sand is quick and easy to build. The one up on the rock is really hard, like, all pictures in the book, like the guys doing that stone on the rock, and it's taking forever, but then when the storms came, the man who built his house on the sand just washed away quickly, and the man who spent a lot of time building on the rock, his house went to the storm, and it's in Luke 6, it says, Luke 6:46 says, "But why do you call me Master, Master, and do not do what I say? The one who is coming to me and is hearing my words and is doing them, I will show him who he is like. He is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid a foundation on the rock. And when a flood came, the stream burst against the house, but it was unable to shake it because it was founded on the rock. So the one hearing and not doing is like a man who built a house on the earth without a foundation, against which the stream burst and was immediately fell, and the ruin of the house was great." And I was reading the word and doing the Shema every day, or just reading, it's like hard work. Especially when you've got life and life issues, and you've got to find time every morning or late at night sometimes. But it builds a strong foundation. So God, you need to actually take that time to read and study properly. So when issues come, you can actually stand them. So the Mark opens it up by saying, hearing these words, you are like this man, and you.
yeah. Any other concluding thoughts? Deuteronomy 6.
No, if I may say something. There is this saying that says that a reader is a leader, a leader is a reader. So I'm coming back to the topic of reading of the Torah, topic reading or maybe reading it maybe in the comfort of your own place, reading the word of the Most High. The more you read the word of Eli Yehon, the more you read his Torah and asking by his Spirit to lead you, enable one to be able to apply the word in his or her own life or her own life. But make it easier for us to lead a life within the framework of hearing of obedience to him as our master and as our creator. Maybe using the word to be conscious times, maybe that's not the intention. However, you get the concept that, for one to be able to have this commitment, to grow this commitment and passion of doing the word of the Most High, and pleasing him by following his Torah. So when one keeps on reading the word of the Most High, constantly, just reading out, obviously, circumstances, situations that try to stifle that attempt or that effort. So it's about it involves the entire being. So that's why with your heart, you hear with your ear, it goes into your heart. But it needs to come out of your heart so that people be able to see that you have heard the ear that's in your heart. Because you do what is in your heart, you say what is in your heart, you speak what's in your heart. Whatever actions or deeds that one gets in engaged in, demonstrate at one point, his or their own life. It's something that maybe one has learned, has acquired over a period of time. And now it's like shooting out,
branches of the tree. We just understand that there's nothing that we can do on our own except by His own mercies. That you should never understand. We know that to trust in our own selves more than to trust in the way of the Lord shall we. So we can understand that there is no one who will be able to overcome the evil inclination running on their own, except with the intervention of the Lord shall we. And guiding our lives and putting the center back for us, the Lord shall we.
Yeah, but while we're talking, I thought that in Torah, if you don't cooperate in the original system, like in Israel, if you didn't cooperate, you became a slave because you fell out. Nothing worked. You became unable to fit into this. So you became a slave to something. Hopefully, you would learn from being a slave in that household of a Torah compatible person, a Torah obedient person. You would learn from them and stop being a slave ultimately and, grow. What's intriguing about that is in the Sabbath millennium, those who are Torah, who've been Torah obedient become in charge, don't they? They're priestly kings. And the nations, they rule over the nations. So you see, I love that parallel. It's like quite prophetic. So what you're saying is very valid. So I look forward to that time. In the meantime, if anyone needs a slave,
Okay, so we're going to just conclude.
are we done?
We're just going to do Deuteronomy 10. We won't do 32. So in page 22. And now, Israel, what is Yahweh your Elohim asking of you? That to fear Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in all His ways, and to love Him, and to serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, to guard the commands of Yahweh and His laws which I command you today for your good. See, the heavens and the heaven of heavens belong to Yahweh your Elohim, also the earth with all that is in it. Yahweh delighted only in your fathers to love them, and He chose their seed after them. You love all peoples as it is today, and you shall circumcise the foreskin of your heart, and harden your neck no more. For Yahweh your Elohim is Elohim of mighty ones, and master of masters, the great El, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality nor takes a bribe. He executes right ruling for the fatherless and the widow, and loves the stranger, giving him food and a garment. And you shall love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Israel. Fear Yahweh your Elohim, serve Him and cling to Him, and swear by His